Yeah, thanks very much, Nicholas, and it's great to be here at Resources Rising Stars and to see some familiar faces out in the audience. It's not working for me, unfortunately. There we go. So I'll be making some forward-looking statements, so please take note of the disclaimer in the presentation, which you'll find on the company's website. We've also got a couple of paper copies out at the booth. Okay, just in terms of Bellavista, this is a really key slide, and this is one of the things that was really important to myself and Peter before joining the company. And obviously, both of us, either separately or together, had other opportunities to look at post our period at De Grey. But you can see for an Australian explorer, relatively few shares on issue, around about 100 million. Very well held through some quite well known and very successful people in the Australian resources space, with Steve and Mike coming out of the Firefly Group, and then also Mark and Kim in Capricorn. So it's very well held. And there's also some institutional investors already at this stage with the company. A couple of interesting stats on De Grey. Nicholas mentioned that when we joined, the market cap was 50 million. I'm not sure what the see-through value of De Grey would be now in Northern Star, given its current market cap. But we raised a bit of money with De Grey, but in terms of that $5 billion takeover when it occurred, we'd actually only spent something like $300 million in the ground, even though we had that market cap. So that was actually quite interesting, quite a lot of leverage there. So look, a really good shareholding, very good backers, and very tightly held. Now, just in terms of the team itself, so we're joining a team that's already been successful in the resources space, with Mel and Mick as the other directors, Maddie as company secretary. And Bellavista's also got Steve and Mike as consultants to the group. And we also can tap into that Richardson Street expertise when it comes to geology, and also sharing some admin services. So overheads are low, but we have a lot of expertise to help us with the journey we're on. Now, in terms of Bellavista's strategy and where we go from here, the company's assets currently are in the Pilbara, in the Edmund Basin, and that's just south of Newman. And so we'll talk about that area in a little while. That's the company's main asset at the moment. That basin is host to a number of different strategic and critical minerals, and there's a project in there that we've got called Brumby that I'll be talking about shortly, that's really quite interesting and a little bit different for Western Australia and what you might be used to. But the other thing we're doing is we're assessing other projects across the world. We're looking at projects in Tier 1 jurisdictions that have the ability to either look at resource growth and or new discovery. So we're looking at those sorts of projects now, and really we want to come up with projects that have been sitting there for a little while, plenty of opportunity and upside, really good street address, and with a very good history of mineralisation and metals endowment that we can leverage into, and then with exploration success, we can leverage the share price off that. So just talking about the project that's in the Pilbara, which you may not be familiar with, it's in the Edmund Basin, which sits between the Pilbara and Yilgarn Cratons. It's quite an interesting part of the world, and as you can see there in red, that's Bellavista's tenements. So of that basin that's shown in light blue there, you can see that Bellavista's got a really strategic tenement holding. One of the interesting things about that basin is that it's been relatively underexplored. And when I spoke with the geos in the company about that tenement package that the company's got now, that was previously held by CRA, the precursor of Rio, and I think they drilled something like 20 holes into that up until the mid-1990s. and it's sat around since then until Bellavista picked it up about 3 years ago. All right, so this just moving into the tenement package here, and the project we're going to talk about is Brumby, which is shaded slightly there in red. But you can see that the tenement package to the north there runs for about 140 kilometres along strike, which is a really good area to get your teeth into. We'll be focusing on that hatched area, which is called Brumby, but you can see the geology is quite similar across that tenement package to what we see at Brumby. There's also another tenement to the east of the Abra mine, which we call the Abra East tenement, but I'll be focusing on Brumby today. And there you can see the similarities in the geology across that tenement package. And when you get an idea of what this project looks like, you can see the potential for this to be huge. Okay, getting into a little bit more detail on what we've got here is something called a hyper-enriched black shale. And what it is it's mineralisation that's sitting in a shale. This shale is gently folded. It plunges gently to the west, and it's dipping very gently to the north and south. There's a lot of mineralisation within that horizon. You can see there all the sorts of strategic and critical minerals are sitting there. And you can see the little black dots on the screen. They're the drill holes that are about currently 1 kilometre apart. That doesn't represent our infill drilling. We're just trying to scope out what that particular part of that package could look like. So, yeah, something that's about 12 kilometres long, 7 kilometres wide, and the area of interest that we're looking at within that shale is 20 metres thick, and that's just in that part of the tenement package, which is called Brumby. All right, this is a pretty interesting sort of mineralisation, this hyper-enriched black shale. And that figure on the right shows you the grades in zinc and zinc equivalent that have been found in a really concentrated area, about 20 metres thick of this shale unit. And you can see some of the grades that are being shown there. So in terms of zinc, you're getting up to 5.8% zinc. And also other grades outside the Hebb's horizon, which is this shallow dipping horizon. We've also got other minerals and metals like copper, nickel and gallium. And then there's also other metals outside of that in terms of molybdenum, manganese and cobalt and vanadium. And you can see some of the grades there. Now, those of you who are in the sort of critical and strategic mineral space will realise some of those grades aren't necessarily at the moment what you'd call economic, but given that the drill hole spacings are kilometre by a kilometre, the fact that those grades are in the right order of magnitude for something that could be economic, and given the scale of what this thing could be, it gives you an indication of the potential opportunity here. Okay, one of the interesting things about this project is the metallurgy, and the deposit was formed in the first place by bacteria, and we'd be looking at using bacteria, biological oxidation, as a metallurgical process to get the metals out of the ore. We've combined with CSIRO to help us with that project, and we've got a PhD student helping us work on that project. One of the leaders of the project is a lady who's worked and was responsible for the process route, or a similar process route that we're looking to adopt at Brumby at a mine that's operating in Finland, which is shown in the bottom corner of that slide. And in Finland, they've got a mine and basically full processing arrangement where it goes from the mine through processing through to producing battery metals. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. Those of you who aren't maybe familiar with biological oxidation, it's been around for decades. I've been personally associated with it when it's come to gold mining and processing, and also nickel mining and processing. In this case, at Brumby, we'd be looking at something that's associated with zinc and potentially other metals. So what happens is you would be mining the ore. In this case, it's a shale. It's very soft. It's close to surface. You mine it. You put it on a great big dump, and then you fertilise that with with bugs, which would be naturally occurring. So there's bacteria that are naturally occurring out there, and those bugs propagate in the pile, and what they do is they chew up the sulphides. They create sulfuric acid, which then keeps going in the pile and generates more leaching. And what the bugs do is they take that metals from a solid into solution, and then you have other processes to take the metals out of solution and turn them into battery metals. And that's the way the process works. So we're very excited about that, and we're also really pleased that this is being used elsewhere in the world. Okay, so in terms of other projects, these sorts of projects do exist elsewhere in the world, and so you can look up those projects offline, and they're shown there on the screen. The one that we're sort of focusing on as an analogy is the project in Finland, which, as I said, that's a commercial entity, and that project's been running for quite a few years now, successfully. Okay, in terms of the exploration strategy and advancing the project, what we're doing is a couple of things at the moment. We've done metallurgical test work using bacteria at a lab scale level, which has demonstrated the concept. The next step is to do things called column leach tests, which then takes that scale up a bit higher. So we want to do that, and part of that is to do some more drilling. So we're doing a heritage survey at the moment that will allow us access to do large diameter drill holes to get sufficient sample to do these column leach tests. We're also going to do a little bit of infill drilling of that 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre space drilling that we've got at the moment to demonstrate short-range continuity. And then if we can demonstrate that short-range continuity, and we know we've got larger scale continuity, we should be able to put out some sort of an exploration target, at least just in that Brumby area, to show the scale of what this thing could look like. And then the metallurgical test work is to show what the processing route could look like. So we'll be doing that now, that heritage survey now, and that's to lead into that drilling post the wet season. So the idea is to prove the scale and the concept here, and then take the project further. Okay, so in terms of what's really important up there as far as the community is concerned, typically when you go into an area and you start your exploration, it's your exploration geos, the field assistants, who have the face-to-face initial relationships with traditional owners and station owners, and our team has done a fantastic job in establishing those relationships, which leads to us being able to get on the ground, be able to get on the stations, be able to get agreements in place with the native title groups, and be able to do the drilling. And for those of you who are familiar with some of the challenges in Western Australia, being able to do that is not necessarily a given in some places. Sometimes it can take a long time to get those relationships in place and to get those approvals in place to be able to do your drilling and to get on the ground. And the fact that we're able to do this heritage survey at the moment and then look to do that drilling in the new year is really a testament to all the work and the good relationships that the team's got in place with the stakeholders up there. So it's really important, and we're really pleased about it. Okay, and just in terms of a summary now, the company, as I mentioned, very low number of shares on issue, really well held, which means it's really well leveraged for retail investors in terms of share price accretion. And that'll come from two avenues. First of all is progressing the Brumby project in the Pilbara, and secondly, in terms of the potential to vend in an asset in a tier 1 location somewhere around the world that's got the potential for resource growth, new discovery, and then to allow shareholders to leverage into that as well. So we're really excited about both the platform that we've got in terms of the company, the people that are associated with it, the people we can work with, and also the potential to be able to leverage value out of that arrangement, the current assets and any new assets we bring in for share price accretion. So thanks very much for your attention.